Speed cameras, census questions, and more tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Good Monday evening. Hope you had a great Easter and a wonderful April Fool's. I got hoodwinked. The bishop got me. Can you imagine that? The bishop got me yesterday. Stay tuned for that in our last segment of the broadcast, as the bishop of the Diocese of Providence gets the best of my state of mind. Tweeting, telling you, just greetings. Nice to have you in. Dan McGowan is my guest, and he's got a lot of insight as to what's happening with the speed camera litigation in the city of Providence. I'll ask Dan about some of the census question stuff that's popped up and the claims by local officials that is problematic. There's also some interesting stuff happening in the business regarding news presentation that Dan will have a thought on, and I do too. And we'll get to all that this evening. So let's start with no further ado with the President of the United States, who has, had another tweet storm. You know, you have to have a 72-inch screen TV to be able to see some of this, but it is absolutely crazy, some of the stuff that he has written out there, including a conversation about broadcast news television. You know, he's always talking about the fake news, but one of the things that really is very concerning to me is this Amazon kick that he is on. I have a big problem with the Pac-Man big gulp of large businesses that become too big to compete with. However, we have a capitalist society, and we don't necessarily have limits unless it becomes something that is just absolutely must regulatable. Does Amazon end up becoming one of those companies? I don't know. Their use of the post office to get stuff to us is a big problem for the president, but some of the tweets that he has been sending regarding Amazon and some other things just unnerve me for this specific reason. He doesn't seem to have any understanding that the President of the United States really can't be adjudicating, in social media or anywhere else, who the good guys and the bad guys are when it comes to business. That's why we have a Justice Department. That's why we have regulatory agencies. The President of the United States should not be opining, and no matter how big or small the business is, about whether or not they're good guys or bad guys. And he just doesn't seem to have an idea about that whatsoever. And it's another one of those things that's diminishing the presidency. And I don't care who you are and what you do and how you voted or what you think. If you're not paying attention to how the presidency's been diminished by this guy in so many ways, including that, then I feel badly for you. He's taken advantage of a non-thinking United States of America right now on X number of fronts, and this is just another one. Where it ends is anybody's guess. I'm talking about the tweet and Amazon and the post office and anything else. You know, where his presidency ends, I stop wondering about it. You know, right now it feels like it's survival day to day. Having said that, let's go to the. Well, anyway, survival day to day. I forgot to play this. I'm so the tweets get me so crazy. This is what he said after Sunday service yesterday.
And a lot of people are coming in because they want to take advantage of DACA. And we're going to have to really see. They had a great chance. The Democrats blew it. They had a great chance.
The guy doesn't even know what the DACA program is. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program is only eligible to those who were here before 2007. I mean, he has no idea what it is. None. Zero. All right, let's go home. We'll be talking about that tomorrow and the census at length with some folks who have participated in that press conference today that you probably saw on the news. In the meantime, on a local level, some interesting headlines here. The former mayor is now defending the speed camera lawsuit. Dan McGowan, of course, always has a story that's on top of this. And here is the lawyer for the class action suers of the city.
This general law for this camera is not enumerated, which means they don't have jurisdiction to hear the tickets. They can issue them, they cannot hear them. They have to go to the traffic tribunal. Also indicate on the front of the ticket that it does not affect your insurance rates. It actually could affect your insurance rates after it's been adjudicated.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Come on back to me, Dan McGowan, ladies and gentlemen.
You're fired up today. I like it.
The guy says he doesn't even know what DACA is.
I know it. No, it's stunning.
It's stunning.
Stunning.
It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
You don't. It's objective to have your breath taken away by the
Absolutely,
President of the United
yeah.
States when he doesn't even know what the program is.
That's right.
Anyway, that's not necessarily
no
your
comment.
field of journalistic investigation, but the speed camera thing has been.
Yes.
That is Peter Petrarca. The attorney suggests that insurance rates could be affected by this. Is he barking up the wrong tree?
I don't think. No, I don't think he is. There's and the city is aware of this now because of the lawsuit. There's language in the lawsuit that, I'm sorry, on the tickets that people get that says this will not affect you. Your insurance won't affect points on your license, things like that. The law, the way it's written, though, says that it won't affect or shall not affect your insurance until it is, I think the language is like fully adjudicated or something. Basically, you pay your fine, right? That's way different than will not affect your insurance ever, right? And so I think that's something. Now, does that mean that the city's gonna have to pay back $1 million or however much money they've collected? I don't know. I think it's too soon to say.
Pay back who? What do you mean?
Meaning, as part of if a class action suit goes forward and
on the people complaining about the tickets being
exactly.
issued.
Now, I have no idea whether that's going to happen, but I do think they have a point on.
Well, we have an insurance commissioner.
Right.
That's something that I think we ought to be checking.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something I haven't done yet, but you're right. It is. Yeah.
Okay, let's go backwards before we go forward, so just to make sure everybody understands what's going on. Once upon a time, the city of Providence decided that it was going to. Well, what was it deciding to do? It was going to try to make the school zones safer.
Yes.
Allegedly, that it was the objective here.
Yeah, that was the goal.
That was the goal, and so they get a vendor who petitioned the state legislature to create enabling legislation that allowed the city of Providence to put up these speed zone cameras.
Right.
Okay, and I'm sure we have video of those, and you've seen them before, and people have been going nuts.
The only thing anybody's talking about, at least in my world.
And so some 12,000 tickets were issued in a month's period of time, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, and you know what hit the fan? And on the first day of adjudication in the municipal court, it was SRO and lines around the building.
That's right. And Judge Caprio tossed out a few tickets. We still don't know exactly how many. I was told dozens, potentially over 100, based on some errors that were on the printed tickets. That obviously sent people into more of an uproar because they're saying, wait, is my ticket an error, things like that.
And it's a $95 ticket.
A $95 ticket.
By legislative mandate, correct?
By this is where it gets weird. It's not in the state law about the speed cameras that says you get a $95 ticket. What is the $95 ticket is in the overarching speeding laws in general. So if you get pulled over, the lowest ticket you can get is a $95 ticket. And so that's where they're coming up with the $95 fine.
I see. Okay. But this is supposed to be a special little safety doohickey for the city of Providence.
Right, which is also, there's no question about it, a revenue generator.
Right, and the company that's doing this is lobbied the legislature hard for it.
That's right. The
lobbyist is a former chief of staff to the mayor.
Yes.
Although
we should say that I don't know, in fact, the year that this was passed by the legislature, this is 2016, I don't believe that Conduent, this is the vendor, I don't believe that they had a registered lobbyist for the state at the time. I believe that there may have been another company that was pushing for this. Clearly somebody pushed for this law to take effect.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
The city council passes and the administration hires this vendor. They pay them a modest stipend monthly.
That's right.
But the company gets a piece of the tickets.
Yeah, big piece, yeah.
And when this onslaught of traffic tickets come, everyone says, oh my, lions and tigers and bears. They have no idea.
Right.
Oh, what, are
I'll
they
tell you,
kidding me?
the funny thing was, I remember when we first reported this, because we knew, I think I told this last time I was on the show, we knew we had a story, obviously, right? 12,000 tickets. But I remember someone from the Boston Globe, after the story initially hit, somebody from the Boston Globe reached out to me and said, how do you know 12,000 is a lot? And it was a really good and fair question. It seemed like a lot. It felt like a lot. But we didn't have anything to compare it to, because you can't compare it to officers giving tickets, right? Because that's just an apples and oranges type of thing. Obviously, officers are going to give far fewer tickets than cameras are going to give. And so I sort of just said, let's just wait and see what happens, what the reaction is. And still the question becomes, how do we know 12,000 is a lot? Well, the legislature and everyone else involved seems to think it's a lot, and I would agree, it does feel like a lot.
In other words, there's nothing to compare it to determine whether it's a lot.
There really isn't, no. And the only place that I remember I was in the room when the city council approved this and when they had this discussion with the company that they entered into a contract to. I remember the guy literally said, in Maryland, where they have them everywhere, you can have anywhere from these things issuing 2 tickets a day to 100 tickets a day, or 200 tickets a day. And so they really had nothing to base it off of, except that, you know, they did a test with the Mount Pleasant Avenue camera, and I think it got 2,300 violations in a day before they even went out or anything. They just tested it. Right. So they knew.
So we'll come back and talk about what the ramifications of this litigation are and a lot more. Stay with us. All right, so Dan, what is the moral to the story here? Well, actually, there isn't any. The point is that the city council bit off a lot more than it's comfortable chewing, because the constituents don't want to digest the speed cameras.
That's right.
If they had said nothing and just went ahead and paid their stuff and went about their merry way, they wouldn't have said a word about it.
That's right.
But now we've got various little, well, maybe we can, we have mitigation programs ahead of litigation, right?
Right.
What's the story?
So there's a lot of things going on in this, right? So the city council said, we're going to do a full review of this. Here's the problem with that. There's now litigation. They have to table they've been told by their solicitor's office they should table this full review that they talked about, that they got all these headlines for, until the case moves forward. They want to see what happens, at least initially, in court. So now you've got no council review, at least in the meantime. Then at the legislature, you've got bill after bill. I mean, there are like 6 or 7 now of bills of the solution to the speed camera problem, including Rep. Giarrusso's proposal to get rid of them altogether. I think you and I both know it's probably not going to happen. Tomorrow, Tuesday, there will be hearings at the State House. So the Judiciary Committee will hear a bunch of bills on potential changes to the program. My gut is that there won't be anything approved tomorrow. It's kind of the first, you know, you're going to have lots of testifying, things like that. So you're waiting to see what's going to happen with the state at the State House. You're waiting to see how the lawsuit's going to go. And in the meantime, the city's still issuing
How long
tickets.
is the lawsuit going to take? Forever.
Yeah, could be forever. Could be. I mean, if you
Is
look,
the lawsuit. So is Peter Petrarca the single lawyer on this lawsuit?
No, another former rep, Peter Waslick, is also involved in this. And I should say, Peter Waslick is one of the best class action lawyers in the country. He is an excellent, excellent lawyer. He's done this all over the place. And so he hasn't done speed cameras yet, to my knowledge, but he's done different things. So, I mean, he's a
why
he's
is
a real
Petrarca
player.
involved with this?
You know, I can't quite figure that out. Honestly, I don't know the answer to it. But he's involved in it.
He's not in a partnership with Waslick,
No,
is he?
no. Waslick's kind of his own thing.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out
maybe
what that's all
legislative
about.
process, although they're both former lawmakers, but I don't have an answer to that. I just know Waslick is
And
kind
how
of
do
the
people
real deal.
join the class action lawsuit? Just by signing up and showing their ticket?
I think so, although I believe, and I'm not an expert on this, I believe what has to happen first is a judge would have to approve the class. I think you have to allow it to even happen before anybody can come forward.
You have to form the entity to litigate.
Exactly.
All right, we got to make a note, Lex. We got to get Representative Waslick, former.
Well, yeah, former
on here and find out how you make a lawsuit like this.
Yeah.
So the lawsuit itself might stymie the reform that most of the people who are litigating want to see.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a circus.
And the idea of whether insurance is impacted is up in the air.
It's still up in the air. Lots of this is up in the air.
But the city assured everybody that this was just a private little fine thing.
Absolutely. On
Had
your
nothing-
ticket,
it says, what does it say on the ticket?
On the
again?
ticket, it says that this will not affect your points on your license or your insurance. And that is, it at least appears to be untrue. Or, I should
It
say...
appears to be untrue, again, because...
Because the state law just says that it won't affect your insurance until fully adjudicated. I believe that's the language.
On this particular speed camera legislation?
Right, yes. Which doesn't necessarily mean that insurance companies will touch it, but they could potentially.
They'll be frothing at the mouth to touch
I would
it
imagine
because
they
it's
would too.
increased premiums.
Absolutely, right.
So nobody really did the diligence on the insurance side.
There was a real lack of, I think, due diligence done on multiple facets of this.
All right. We're going to have more on this tomorrow, but there was a group of elected and dignitary types who got together today to say no on the question of citizenship on the census. Mm-hmm. You've been writing about this.
Yes, yeah.
Your take?
You know, I think it is, this whole idea of wanting to get the census right is incredibly important. I think I heard you on the radio talking about this too. I completely agree with that idea. This is not, you could have any opinions left, right, whatever you feel about immigration, doesn't matter. We need to have the right counting program in place to make sure we're as accurate as possible as a state. I think what their concern is not just the citizenship question, which is a major concern, of course, but it's also there aren't a lot of resources to promote the census right now, at least not as much as there was in the past. And so there's real fear among mayors that people are just not going to open the door for people coming to count, and that's going to be a major issue. So I think it is a real concern.
And anybody who wants to think past their nose on this has got to understand that if the first question is, are you a U.S. citizen, that those who are not, are, especially in this environment with the Trump administration, those who are not are going to say, I really don't need to do this paperwork.
Absolutely.
And then they're going to chase down. And since we are only a couple of hundred short of losing a congressional seat, and by the way, the census primary objective is counting people to assess congressional districts.
Right.
On my radio, the crankers are the mood of this state is so
super
bad.
cynical. Yeah,
it's so cynical.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then we'll only have one of the bumps, as opposed to thinking through what the representation issues are.
Yeah, it's a really, I honestly think, and this is not me speaking for the company, it's me speaking for me, I think as the media in general, we need to do a better job on this issue of coming together and really promoting the reasons why people should take the census. This should be free PSA kind of stuff that we're doing because it's really important. It has nothing to do with Cisalini, Langevin. It has nothing to do with
interestingly, Providence County is the test county in America.
The only
Why?
one.
How did we win that?
I don't know. We were one of 3 originally. Then they didn't have funding for the other 2. They picked Providence County. They say it's the diversity, things like that. I honestly don't know the real answer to it.
Yeah, so anyway, get your practice census filled out and then pay attention to this issue because the question will depress the real count, which will then hurt all of us.
Right. And it hurts federal funding, things like that.
Everything.
Yeah.
The infrastructure that we pay for it's got to be paid for the amount of people who use it.
Absolutely.
By the way, the immigrants that are here, illegal or not, they're not being shipped out.
Right.
Well, not too many anyway. The president's trying. All right, when we come back, some broadcasty type of controversy. We'll talk about it next. So here's a headline. The president tweeted about this over the weekend. These Sinclair broadcasting anchors, they own hundreds of television stations.
170 or something.
170. And look, we're in the business, and Sinclair owns the competitor, Channel 10, over across the street. This became news 2 weeks ago, but I guess they executed this weekend, where anchors had to read a script. And the script talks about the dangers of social media and news organizations actually running news from social media. I'm not going to quote the script right here. What was your take as a broadcast guy and a journalist about this?
I thought it was uncomfortable in the sense that the company, this big company that owns, like you said, I think it's 170 some odd stations around the country, is capitalizing on the credibility that local journalists have, right? If you think around the country where people really do still trust and still get a ton of their information, it's local TV. I think there's a Pew Research, 37% of people still are getting their news from local TV more than anywhere else. And so what you're doing is you're taking the credibility of a Mike Montecalvo. Now, he's not doing it, but I'm saying anchors, things like that. Dan York, like people who people here trust, and saying, you know, we're going to deliver this message. Now, the message in and of itself sounds straightforward.
It's kind of benign.
Right. The danger is that Sinclair is well known for being generally on the, supportive of President Trump. I think,
and looking to make a new deal with Tribune Broadcasting.
Absolutely,
which is
a
under
huge
review
yeah.
right now.
And if you look at what Jared Kushner said publicly to a group of executives, we cut a deal. The Trump campaign cut a deal with Sinclair for favorable news coverage. That's scary.
Trump writes on Twitter, so funny to watch fake news networks, among the more dishonest groups of people I've ever dealt with, criticize Sinclair Broadcasting for being biased. Sinclair is far superior to CNN and even more fake NBC, which is a total joke. But the President of the United States makes these continuous...
This is like the DACA thing.
Layman stuff. I mean, he doesn't even know what's going on. And what's fascinating is that some Sinclair properties are NBC affiliates.
Including the one right here.
Including the one here in town.
Yes.
It's awful. It's easy to say, you know, these journalists are weak-kneed and shouldn't do it.
That's crazy, though.
Well, they're under contract.
Right. What are you going to do?
And unless they're willing, ready, and able financially to be able to say, you know what, go to hell,
right.
And I'm just going to, you know, look for a new gig because I'm not going to do this. It's outrageous. It seems to me that the company's responsible position would be to have management make these comments rather than try to brand this kind of disposition through their anchors, all of whom had to just be sick to their stomach. And this Deadspin video that's out that mimics all of them and supplants them all together has got to make it for a wretched, wretched weekend. Yeah, well, millions of people have already viewed that video, and you're exactly right. Look, you want to run a promo of 30 seconds of the head of Sinclair or the head of Nexstar, which is our station or our company, that's fine. But using the credibility of local anchors, the people you see in the grocery store, that you see at church, that you trust, that you let into your home every night, I think it's really dangerous. Yeah, it really is. All right, Dan McGowan with the word. We'll just keep following the lawsuit on the speed cameras. This is going to be his only project for 2018. That's the only thing you're dealing with. Actually, he's got a good read on the Teachers Union, which we didn't get to today, but you should read. We're in East Side Monthly. East Side Monthly. Yeah. All right, how the bishop got me when we come back. Stay with us. All right, so the bishop got me. Can we put this tweet up? This is too much. So Bishop Tobin writes on Easter morning on Twitter, so I've come to a big decision. I'm tired of the Steelers losing in the playoffs. After 13 years in New England, I've decided to become a fan of Tom Brady and the Patriots. I read that, and I was like, and I wrote, not inclined to question our spiritual leader, but this is a mystery. I lived 15 minutes from Gillette for 18 years and can't become. How does one become? Until I'm reminded on Twitter that it was April Fool's Day in addition to Easter. So I had to write, never mind, fall for it every time. Although I did suggest to the bishop on Twitter, which he liked on Twitter, I say, although I think it's fair to suggest that the bishop stay focused on Easter. See ya. I'm all done.